Whether if you're at the top of the mountain or the bottom of the mountain, we still need wins every single week throughout the remainder of the season. So today, I'm here to help. I have 8 start-sit decisions with 2 bonus at the end. If you have any questions about your lineup or you just want a second opinion this weekend, let me know in the comments. I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Of course, we are killing it this season, and I don't want to jinx myself, but last week, Devontae was hurt before the game, or hurt, right? But on the week, again, it looks like we went 6-1. We did miss on Kyle Pitts, the rare one game a year that he did explode. We picked against him. Let's kick it off here with Anthony Richardson, a former Gator. That's a different conversation for a different day, but again, I think we're seeing a lot of his flaws that he didn't develop at the collegiate level translate to the NFL, and defenses are starting to pick on Anthony Richardson. But this is a guy that's still an elite talent, elite rushing talent for fantasy, particularly. And this is a guy that is due for a big game. Week 1, explosive week. We thought this was the fantasy MVP. Ever since then, it's been a consistent decline as far as fantasy production. Injuries also don't help his case either. From weeks 2 through 4, right? He didn't play week 5. He was the quarterback 31. That's not even a backup quarterback in a 12-team league. He's coming off of an injury, going into week 6 on the road versus a tough Tennessee defense. There's just a lot going against Anthony Richardson. It seems like fans are starting to turn on him, which is why I think he's due for a big game to remind us the talent that he is. Look, it's going to be very hard to sit a guy that we drafted to be our starter, but due to what we've seen, I'm going to say sit Anthony Richardson. And why? What do we replace him with? Or who do we replace him with? Well, on Monday, we did our waiver video, and I talked about Kirk Cousins, a guy that is coming off of a historical performance. 48 points last week on Thursday Night Football. He's playing on the road at Carolina, which is a top 5 matchup for quarterbacks this season. The offense, seemingly, it might only be getting better going forward as they continue to find their stride, and Cousins gets more comfortable coming off of that Achilles injury. Now, the cons. Look, don't expect, again, another magical Kirk Cousins performance. He's playing Carolina, not a tough Tampa Bay defense. So don't expect another 40-point game. Don't even expect 25 points from Kirk Cousins this week. But you can assure yourself that you're going to get 18 to 20 points against lackluster Carolina defense. And that's again, I like that a lot more than Anthony Richardson that could give us 5 or 30. So Kirk Cousins, a lot safer of a start this weekend. So I'm going to say start him. The only cons I would say, it might be a Bijan game. We haven't had a Bijan game yet, and Carolina's defense, again, way below average. So Bijan could have one of those great fantasy performances this weekend. At the receiver position, let's talk about Calvin Ridley. He's playing Indianapolis, right? Of course, we talked about Richardson, and I just think this is going to be an ugly matchup top to bottom. But for Ridley, he's going into a great matchup on paper, as far as it's a top 7 matchup for receivers all season long against the Colts defense. He's due for a big game, whether if it's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis or me or you at the quarterback position. Ridley is due for a big game, especially after getting all of that money. Now, he's coming off of a bye. That's another plus because he's rested. The quarterback is rested. And, of course, Will Levis has had 2 weeks to prepare for this Indianapolis defense. The cons, however, he's only averaging 2 receptions on 4 targets a game. That's not even backup. That's not even flex-worthy play for our fantasy lineups. So, again, with that happening, with that looming, the quarterback questions that we do have, and the fact that this could just be a low-scoring affair, I'm going to say sit Calvin Ridley this week. I understand we drafted him to be a wide receiver 2, maybe wide receiver 3, but we're at that point in the season where true colors are showing and the writing on the wall is starting to finish, or at least take place. We're going to sit Calvin Ridley with what we've seen so far. Wale Robinson, I have talked about this dude all off season and every single week on Mondays for the waiver videos, and I'm going to continue to start him on this hot stretch. We're going to roll with the hot hand. Wale Robinson, he's coming off of a game where he was the wide receiver 18 last week, and he's been the wide receiver 18 on the year, wide receiver 18 over the last 3 weeks. Wandale's killing it, right? Crazy talent out of Kentucky, a guy that you just want to get the ball and get out the way. But on the year, he's averaging 6 receptions with about 50 yards a game, so 11, give or take, points per game, right? the kicker here, the thing that I love about Wandale this year is that the volume is there, and volume is king in fantasy football. 10 targets a game for a guy that whether if he has Malik Neighbors next to him or not, he's getting consistent volume, and that's important. Now, Malik Neighbors is coming off of an injury, so maybe he's going to be limited this weekend in their matchup against Cincinnati, but if he's not, still Wandale's killing it regardless. The only con I will say is, again, Malik Neighbors is back. Wandale, I guess, isn't guaranteed elite production or has as big of an elite upside as he did last week. But regardless, I'm going to say start Wale Robinson over a guy like Calvin Ridley, for example. Roll with the hot hand. This one's a gimme, but again, I've seen a lot of questions come in about should we start him over X player or X player. Look, Jaden Reed, and it's another situation. We got to roll with the hot hand. He is no doubt Jordan Love's favorite target at this point in time. And in the 3 games that Jordan Love and Jaden Reed have played together, Jaden Reed's stat line, he's had 15 receptions on 20 targets, 390 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's averaging elite production. To add on top of that, Christian Watson might be out this weekend. Romeo Doubs is suspended from the team. So it's Jaden Reed and pretty much no one else. And Tucker Kraft is his only competition because Dontavian Wicks last week had, 2 fantasy points throughout the entire game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game against Arizona this weekend in a must-win seemingly for both teams early on this year. The only thing I will say is that he's going to be the main focus of the Arizona defense because of the factors that I've listed. Regardless, I trust LaFleur. He's an offensive mastermind. He's going to get his offensive playmakers in the right positions, and he has the quarterback to do it. So Jaden Reed must start this weekend. Tucker Kraft, a lot of the same. Those 2 receivers are out. He's the tight end 3 on the year, and it's mainly because of the last 2 weeks where he's been the tight end 1. 5 receptions in that stretch, 14 targets, again, over these last 2 weeks, but 75 yards, 1.5 touchdowns a game. So again, he's given you 11, but just about 20 points a game over the last 2 weeks. Again, like I mentioned, I think it's going to be a high-scoring shootout, and the only con I will say is that Arizona is pretty good against the tight end position this year. But I will say also, I trust the offensive mastermind, and he's one of the only 2 options in this offense. And for a tight end position that we just get very inconsistent production out of anybody that we start, let's roll with the hot hand in Tucker Kraft. And I think, again, could be a high-scoring affair. Tyler Conklin, I have been starting him a lot in these videos, but over the last 3 weeks, 5 receptions on 7.5 targets a game. So the volume is there. Rodgers seems to love getting the ball to Tyler Conklin the more the season goes on. And, again, over the last 3 weeks, he's been the tight end 5, averaging about 11 points a game. I think it's a must-win for the Jets this upcoming week against Buffalo on Monday night. So, again, Monday night play as well. Everybody likes to have one of those primetime slot players starting in our lineup. The only con I will say, again, the offense has been very inconsistent. So one game, they're putting up 25. The other, they're putting up 9. So, again, something to just look out for going forward with these Jets players. But I'm going to say start Tyler Conklin in a must-win for the Jets. Now, if you made it to this point in the video, you have my 2 extra plays going into the weekend. Now, I have to give you an extra play. Usually, it's just 1 extra play. But I'm giving you another one because Devontae was out last week, and we got to make up for it. The record cannot be off the way that it is. I want to add on that we're going to sit Brock Purdy on Thursday night against a tough Seattle defense, and we're going to start Christian Kirk at Chicago, which is a very tough defense against receivers. So on one hand, we're rolling with a great matchup, and on the other hand, we're rolling against a great matchup. Regardless, that's going to do it for our Week 6 video. Again, if you have any questions, or I guess you just want a second opinion about your lineup this weekend, let me know in the comments. I'll get back to you as quick as I can.